Justin Bieber, a name we all know, right? But did you know the superstar has been battling some serious anger issues behind the scenes? That's right. Despite his fame, wealth, and millions of fans, Justin's been grappling with some pretty tough emotional challenges. Ever wondered what it's really like for someone at the top? Dealing with mental health struggles? Well, Bieber's been opening up about his journey, revealing just how hard it can be to manage both his career and inner battles. Stick around to hear about his raw, honest confession and what it means for him moving forward. Justin Bieber's rise to fame was meteoric. He went from being a teenager posting videos on YouTube to one of the biggest pop stars in the world. His fans loved him, and the media couldn't get enough of him. But what we didn't see, behind the flashing lights and the screaming crowds, was the side of Bieber struggling with his emotions. There was a darker side to his life that he kept hidden. It wasn't always obvious to fans, but over time, cracks started to show. For years, Justin was the life of the party, always out in the spotlight, always on. But in reality, that's the exact opposite of what he was feeling inside. Sure, he looked happy in the photos and on stage, but behind closed doors, he was battling some serious issues, many of which were directly linked to his emotions. You'd think that having everything, fans, fame, a loving wife, and a dream career would make anyone happy, right? But as Justin has confessed in recent years, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. He started to deal with feelings that many of us experience, but perhaps more intensely: frustration, anger, and self-doubt.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me. And
It might sound surprising to many of his fans who've only ever seen him as the confident, charming pop star. But these emotions were slowly eating away at him, and he had to face them eventually. What do we really know about the pressures of being in the spotlight? And how does fame affect someone's mental health when it feels like the whole world is watching? For Justin, it was a perfect storm of high expectations, constant attention, and the pressure to always be perfect. And over time, this pressure started to take a toll. But Justin isn't just another celebrity complaining about fame. What sets him apart from many others is how open he's been about his struggles.
Usher, I love your songs. You want me to sing one of your songs? And he gets so many people every day. Can I sing for you?
Over the years, Bieber has used social media as a platform not just for promoting his music, but for sharing his real, raw emotions with the world. His posts haven't just been about pictures from the studio or his family life. No, Justin has started sharing his heart, including some tough stuff about his mental health, his anger, and his self-doubt. And that's where it all begins. With a post on Instagram, a simple platform for quick updates and snapshots of life. But for Justin, his post wasn't just another selfie or promotional picture.
I never got to see what that really looked like. So I'm like, can I even do this? Do I even know what it looks like to do this? But I just felt like God was saying.
It was something far more significant. He shared with his fans that he had been struggling with anger issues, and it wasn't just any kind of post. It was a real cry for help, a call for self-reflection. Justin's confession took many people by surprise, but for those who have followed him closely, it didn't seem completely out of the blue. There had been signs before, moments where Justin seemed to be fighting with his inner demons. In the past, he'd lashed out in public, dealing with accusations of bad behavior, whether it was in his relationships or with the law. But this post was different. It wasn't about the mistakes he had made in the past or trying to justify anything. It was him acknowledging that he wasn't perfect and that he had his flaws, and just like everyone else. That's when it hit. Justin Bieber, the worldwide superstar, was admitting something that many people with similar struggles might find hard to say out loud. He was angry. Angry at himself. Angry at the world. And for him, it wasn't just about the anger issues. It was the self-loathing that came with it. This deeper sense of self-hatred was something he was finally ready to confront. He wasn't just sharing a vague message. He was talking about the real, gritty stuff. Stuff that wasn't easy to share. The big question everyone had at that moment: why now? Why was Justin suddenly so open about this? Why was he showing his most vulnerable side to millions of fans? This wasn't just some fleeting post. No, it was a sign that something bigger was at play. Something deep, something important. Justin's battle with his anger and his mental health was real. And by putting it out there, he was taking the first step toward dealing with it. And the more he shared, the more it became clear. Bieber wasn't just dealing with surface-level issues. He was facing something more profound. It wasn't just anger at the world, but at himself. For years, he'd struggled with feelings of inadequacy. Despite his success, he felt unworthy. Despite the love around him, he couldn't accept it. This was his true battle, and the fans? They were just starting to see a glimpse of it. So what's really going on behind the scenes of Justin Bieber's life? What does this mean for him and his future? Stay tuned. It wasn't just the anger issues that Justin was dealing with. It was deeper, more complex.
You gotta go and get angry at all of my honesty. You know I try, but I don't do too well with apologies.
Behind the posts and the headlines, there was a battle happening inside of him that many of his fans couldn't even imagine. Sure, he had fame and all the trappings of success, but that didn't shield him from the hardest battles. The ones that happen in your mind. For years, Justin's public persona was built around this upbeat, larger-than-life image. But underneath, he was dealing with feelings of worthlessness, insecurity, and doubt. His journey wasn't just about healing from anger, it was about finding peace with himself. He was at war with his own mind. His heart wanted one thing, but his mind was pulling him in another direction, constantly questioning his value. Self-hatred wasn't just a passing thought. It was something that Justin had been grappling with for years. Even though millions adored him, he still couldn't seem to shake that nagging feeling of not being good enough. For someone who had lived in the public eye for most of his life, it must have been incredibly isolating to feel like no matter what he did, he wasn't enough. The struggle wasn't just external, it wasn't just about dealing with the media or fans' expectations. It was about confronting the toxic thoughts that had been growing inside him for years. His anger issues were more like a symptom of a much larger problem. They were a sign that he hadn't been able to fully confront those inner demons, and no amount of success or adoration could fix that. Justin's confession wasn't just about saying, "Hey, I have anger issues." It was deeper than that. He was opening the door to something much bigger. He was admitting that he had been battling self-doubt, questioning his worth, and at times feeling like he wasn't even worthy of the love and success he had achieved. Fans didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. Many assumed he was just a bad boy, or someone who didn't care about the consequences of his actions. But when you understand the weight of what he was carrying, it starts to make sense. The anger wasn't random. It was a reaction to all the pain and confusion he had inside. It was his way of expressing frustration with the world, yes, but also with himself. But here's the thing. The fact that he was talking about it was a big deal. It wasn't about playing the victim or seeking sympathy. It was about owning up to his struggles and showing that even the most successful people in the world have battles they're facing. It was a powerful message to anyone who felt the same way. For Justin, this wasn't just a moment of self-pity. It was a turning point. By acknowledging his anger issues and self-hatred, he was taking control of the narrative. He was no longer the perfect Justin Bieber everyone expected him to be. He was human, just like the rest of us. His fans were now seeing a side of him they hadn't seen before. And while some might have been shocked, others could relate.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn and everyone, telling me they love me. And
anger, self-doubt, and mental health struggles are things that don't discriminate. They affect everyone, even the most famous pop stars in the world. Justin was making it clear. This wasn't something he could ignore anymore. He needed to face it head on. But this was just the beginning. This was the moment where he admitted the issue, but what came next? Could he really overcome these battles? Was he ready to do the work needed to heal? The real journey was only just starting. As Justin continued to open up about his struggles, it became clear that healing wasn't going to be easy. Admitting to anger issues and deep feelings of self-hate was just the first step. Now, he had to do the hard work of actually confronting these problems and finding ways to deal with them.
We have really, like you said, tight security.
Right.
Yeah.
But have you had people try to sneak in and do things like...
No more hiding behind a perfect image or pretending everything was fine. What struck people the most was the fact that Justin wasn't doing this alone. He was seeking help. Whether it was through therapy, faith, or his support system, he began to actively work on himself, trying to break free from the toxic patterns that had controlled his life for so long. It wasn't a quick fix, and it wouldn't happen overnight. But by seeking help, he was proving that it's okay to ask for support when you're struggling, even if you're a superstar. For someone like Justin, who had been in the spotlight since he was a kid, this process was never going to be easy. He was facing not only the trauma and pressure of fame, but also the added weight of being constantly under public scrutiny. Every step of his journey, every misstep was being watched, judged, and criticized by millions of people. But despite the challenges, Justin was committed to working through his anger and emotional struggles, regardless of how tough it might get. Healing takes time. And for Justin, it wasn't just about managing his anger, it was about rebuilding his relationship with himself. For so long, he had been caught in a cycle of self-criticism, believing he wasn't enough. But as he started to heal, he began to shift his mindset. It was no longer about being perfect. It was about being real. He was learning to accept himself, flaws and all, and that was the most important step in his journey. It's not easy to open up about these things, especially when you're someone as famous as Justin Bieber. The world is watching, waiting for you to mess up, to fall short of expectations. But by confronting his anger issues and working on his mental health, Justin was showing that even the most public figures are human. They have their battles too. And by sharing his story, he was giving his fans a sense of hope that no matter how deep the struggle, change is possible. What makes Justin's journey so powerful is the fact that he's not pretending everything is perfect. He's showing the messy side of growth, the tough moments, the setbacks, the times when you feel like giving up.
And I was sick, and I didn't realize I was sick. So I had like Epstein-Barr, which is like, it's called mono. And then I have...
And in doing so, he's inspiring others to keep going, even when the road ahead seems impossible. He's learning to embrace the journey, and in the process, he's finding the strength to rise above the anger and self-doubt that once held him back. The real question now was, how much further would Justin go in this journey? How much more would he reveal, and how would he continue to fight against the things that once controlled his life? And most importantly, could he find peace within himself? This was the chapter of healing that was just beginning, and the road ahead was filled with both uncertainty and hope. As time passed, Justin's efforts to heal and move forward became more and more visible. He wasn't just talking about his struggles, he was walking the walk. He was showing that change isn't a quick fix. It's a commitment. From spending time with his loved ones to practicing mindfulness and faith, Justin was on a path of self-discovery. He was learning to forgive himself for the mistakes he made in the past and slowly finding peace with who he was becoming. The anger that once consumed him began to subside, replaced with a more grounded and centered version of himself. And the self-hate, it was still a part of the process, but it no longer defined him. He was beginning to accept that he didn't have to be perfect, that he didn't have to live up to everyone else's expectations. It was okay to be flawed. In fact, that's what made him human. As Justin continued his journey, it wasn't about becoming a new person. It was about becoming the truest version of himself. He wasn't erasing the past or pretending it didn't happen. Instead, he was using his experiences to fuel his growth, shaping a better future. And through it all, his fans stood by him. They were inspired not just by his music, but by his courage to face his inner demons head-on. His vulnerability became a source of strength for so many, proving that even the most famous faces aren't immune to life's struggles. Justin has chosen to confront those battles, and in doing so, he's shown us that growth is possible. And it's okay to not have it all figured out yet. The road ahead for Justin Bieber is full of unknowns, but one thing is clear: he's no longer running from his pain. He's facing it head-on, and that's the most powerful thing of all.